Hey everyone, I'm Clifford, and today we are having some sculpture and story time, where I tell a story while I sculpt. I know you're probably wondering about the horse, and it's to keep your and my attention span, while I'm telling you about why this horse is special. You see, I have a very good friend / co-worker of mine that had shown me that the working world doesn't have to be that hard and terrifying if you have a good friend by your side, and I am oh so grateful for her. So this horse is for her. Thank you so much for being you, Maywood. Now, let's get started. Now, back in the days, when horses still roamed free in herds, with wind in their hair, there was a little foal born. A special little foal. Not because it was the fastest or the prettiest, quite the opposite, in fact. Normally horses gave each other names, like Stargazer and Thunder. But this little horsey was so insignificant that she was named No Name. Because compared to the others, she didn't like to run as fast as she could. She didn't enjoy the open sky over her head and danger in every corner. She hated it, in fact. And the other horses didn't understand that, so they shied away from her and made her outcast. Now, of course, this made little No Name very, very sad. So she tried her best to run as fast as she could and tried to enjoy the wild nature and the breeze. But she didn't. No matter how hard she tried, she was never fast enough. She was never free enough from her worries. And that is probably why, when the two-legged creatures came, she tried to run away from the evil horse hunters, as they called them. But inside, she had already given up. She knew she was simply too slow. So when the rope came around her throat, she tried her best to get away, because she had been told they were evil and they would hurt her. But inside, she felt hopeless and doomed. The two-legged creature that took her home was exactly like she predicted. An evil, venomous creature that dragged her into a fold and denied her food and water for a whole day, only to put a skin cloth over her back the next day and jump on her. Now, being a young horse, as she was at the time, she did what every terrified young horse would do and began to run as fast as she could until he fell off, which apparently displeased the creature, because he ran up to her and started beating her so badly, so she was scared to breathe. The next day, she stood completely still when he jumped up on her, in hope of avoiding the beating, but that only made it worse. She tried everything, but no matter what, the human just didn't seem satisfied, and that confused and scared her. So just like in the herd, she gave up. Some days beating was worse than others, but it was always the same thing, and she thought that was a fate, until one day, when the human apparently had enough and came with her with a gun. Now, she had never seen a gun before, but she had heard it and smelled it and knew what was about to happen. But at that point, faith happened. You see, sometimes a minor decision can affect not only you, but everyone around you. And that was what happened to Jack. You see, Jack was a drunk and was on his way over to Bill, that had no name, to get exactly that, drunk. He had had a fight with the missus because he had used all the money on gambling and drinking. And now he had just had enough and wanted to drink his problems away. He wasn't exactly the biggest fan of Bill, but for drinks and some moonshine, he was a good friend. But compared to Bill, Jack was an animal lover. So when he saw Bill standing there with a gun, he called out, "Isn't that a waste of a good horse, my friend?" Bill frowned and said, "This is no good horse. I wager it can only be used for a horse stew." Jack forced a smile and said, "Well, that would be a terrible waste since you're a horrible cook. Why not give her to me?" Bill smiled at him. "Well, you can buy her from me, but I guess you don't have that kind of money." Jack sighed at that. "That is true, my friend, but let me make you a deal. You come over once every week for a bowl of stew, and you give me the horse. You know, my wife is a much better cook than you." And with that offer, Bill's mouth watered and he quickly agreed. And before Jack knew it, he was on his way home with the horse, debating on how he should tell his wife Laura. If possible, she would get even madder now. But maybe this horse was a sign. Maybe this was his opportunity to turn his life around. Maybe he could become more than the town drunk. The horse seemed gentle enough, if a bit scared. So maybe there was hope. When he got home and his wife came out, she said, "What have you done now?" And he said, "Well, I could tell you, but you probably won't believe me. But could you please make some stew tomorrow? We're going to need it." His wife was one big question mark. But then again, she was just happy that he didn't come home drunk. So she accepted that the horse got into their shed and was there for a while Jack tried to figure out what he was going to do with it. For days he tried to tame it, tried to ride it, but every time he put a saddle on, the horse became stiff and sweat was forming on its skin. He was at a loss. Maybe this horse just wasn't the answer. Maybe he just made a mistake again, like so many other times, and let his wife down. His wife, on the other hand, watched him try with the horse for so many days. She watched him from the window, and one day she came out and said, "Maybe this horse just isn't a riding horse, dear." His wife was kind in nature and believed that her husband could do so much more than he did. Being a drunk and all, he never hit her and never treated her badly. So she believed in him, which was a good idea because that made Jack think maybe this horse just wasn't for riding. The next day, he took what little money that he hadn't used on alcohol and went to town where he bought a plow and some seeds. When he got home, he took No Name out on a bare piece of land. Now No Name was terrified when she felt the leather straps around her and saw the metal thing just behind her. So she stood completely still, waiting for another form of torment, but it never came. And after a while, she tried to take a step forward. Feeling the pressure, she began to pull as hard as she could, which to her surprise resulted in praise and not a beating. Jack was smiling and talking to her in a kind voice, and it was at that point No Name realized that she might not be the prettiest horse or the fastest, but this thing, for this kind-hearted human, this thing she could do, and so she pulled with everything she got. And when night came, they had plowed a whole field. "You are a perfect working horse," Jack exclaimed while hugging her. And No Name realized that she actually liked that, just like she realized she liked the shed that made her feel safe and comfortable. So the two of them got to work. One field became 2, then 4, then 8. Some mornings Jack woke up with the shakes, just like some mornings No Name was a little more skittish than the day before. But they got through it together, and before long Jack could finally support his family, and No Name realized that she had found the place for her. No Name was treated like a princess, not only by Jack but also by his wife that was so grateful that the man she loved finally realized his own potential. Years went by and the shed got exchanged for a decent stable. Jack also bought 2 other horses to ride and to keep Amy with company. The house also got bigger because the family got bigger. And even though No Name never got comfortable around strangers, she loved every single member of her new herd. And she even got a name. One day, one of Jack's youngest daughters wrapped her arms around her and said, "I'm gonna call you Amy." And that settled it and changed No Name to Amy. She lived there for the rest of her life. And even after she was gone and Jack was an old man, he found himself telling the story to his grandchildren about the horse that changed his life. And that, guys, is it for the sculpture, story and video. Thank you so much for watching. If you like my stories and sculptures, please consider a comment, like and subscribe. It will really mean a lot to me. And if you can't wait until next week, then click on the square to your right. Then you can hear about Charlie the jam bear and see me sculpt him. Until then, bye!